Hello, and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. Today's podcast number 2256. The topic is mindset, and the title is Get Out of Your Own Way. What I wanted to do in today's podcast was explore ways in which I see clients sabotage their own progress. This does happen. There is a term self-sabotage, which I hear a lot about in business because I read and consume a lot of material on business and personal development, and especially in the world of entrepreneurism. Personal development is business development, and typically, if you're having a business problem, you're having a self problem. So, the more I can figure out how to be a better version of myself, that improves the quality of my life, the quality of the people within my life, my loved ones, but then also transfers to business as well. So those are pretty much the two topics I learn about all the time is self-development and business development. The term self-sabotage comes up in both. And I have seen that over the years. I started working with clients when I was 16. I'm 41, so I've been doing this for 26 years. Well, 25 years. I don't know. I can't do math. So I've been working with people for 25 years. Now, you can tell I do personal training, not mathematics. But it's been 25 years, and I've seen that in others over the years. It's always easier to see mistakes other people make, but that has raised my awareness to the mistakes that I make. I guarantee I still have blind spots, but I am constantly working on trying to figure out what those are. And if I can find something that I can improve upon, I like to attack it because it makes my life a lot better. What I wanted to do today was to go through 5 common ways that I see clients sabotage their own progress, so that way it can raise the awareness that you have of your actions, and maybe these are things that you're doing that is limiting the progress that you're able to make towards your goals. The first one is setting self-expectations too high or too low. The second is not tracking data. The third is over-focusing on one element. The fourth is valuing short-term pleasures over long-term results. And the fifth is waiting for things they can't control rather than focusing on the things they can already control. So this will be great for applying to our physical health, but I'm certain this is going to apply to all areas of life as well. Let's go through the first one, setting self-expectations too high or too low. The mistake I typically see people make when it comes to setting expectations too high is they ask themselves, what is possible? When we think of training frequency, they'll be like, well, if I adjust this and do this, if I force this thing that way, I could probably make 5 days a week work. So then they say, okay, 5 days a week is the expected minimum. That's a standard that I believe I should be able to do all the time. And it's like, well, you could hear in the way the person was setting it up when I'm doing consultations and talking to clients, and we do this in our own head, so be aware of the way you talk to yourself, is if you do this, and then I adjust this, and da-da-da-da-da, if I put in all these efforts, if I basically overextend myself, and or if everything goes perfectly, I'm capable of X, or what's possible is X. So then we set X as the expectation. A better way to think of this is, okay, what is currently possible if I change nothing? And then what would be possible if I made reasonable changes? So maybe right now you would say, hey, you know what? I have a pretty easy schedule during Monday through Thursday. The Friday's a little bit crazy. Weekends, I really like to just relax. I don't want to be stressed on the weekends. So Monday through Thursday, I could probably make a workout work. Probably all 4 of those days, but definitely at least 3 of those days, and then leave one day in case something chaotic happens or in case I have a doctor's appointment, a life event that I can't control. So you would say, okay, my minimum is 3 days a week, Monday through Thursday. I could probably get at least 3 of those 4 days. Then maybe if I, push things a little bit, I could get all 4. And then if I sacrificed a little bit of pleasure on the weekends, maybe between Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I might be able to get another day. So the options could be anywhere from 3 to 5. The healthy expectation would be, okay, I'm going to do 3 no matter what. Even if, life craps the bed and nothing goes well, I could probably make 3 work. If I have a normal week, normal stress, I could make 4 work. A really good week where things kind of line up, maybe I could do 5. So I'm going to say 3 is my minimum. 4 is awesome if I could do it. 5 would be amazing if I could do that. So that's what we set up as our new expectations. Is 3 is the minimum, 4 is good, 5 would be great. That is a healthy way to set up the expectations. What I see people do when they set their expectations too low is they're doing action, but it's not really producing results. Let's say, for example, that in the previous example, you decided that 3 was your minimum, 4 was good, 5 was great. At 3 days a week, and maybe you're getting your calories controlled in proper range, maybe 4 out of 7 days, protein maybe 4 out of 7 days. It's kind of mediocre. It's a little over 50%, but it's certainly not great. If you're doing okay, quote unquote okay, between 50 to 70% adherence on your nutrition, maybe your sleep is kind of hit or miss, maybe your stress is really high right now, and you're only training 3 days a week, you're probably not going to see great progress. So when we set our expectations too low, what tends to happen in that case is we're putting in action and or we feel the pressure to put in action every day. But we're not seeing any kind of progress or seeing an outcome that is creating positive momentum, that's creating and sustaining motivation. So when our standards are too low, we are doing some actions, we're feeling the pressure of what we should be doing action-wise all the time, but we're not getting anything that feels like it's worthwhile for the effort that we're putting forward. That is a sign then that usually the expectations are too low. Because you would say to yourself as well, I'm following the diet, I'm following the training program, but when we look at the actuality of it, you're really only following the diet 50 to 70% of the time. And we're training the minimum of what our schedule actually could allow. So we said 3 was a good minimum, but if you could do a 4th, that would be good. If you could do a 5th, that would be great. But if all you're ever really doing is 3, you're never really challenging yourself to get the 4, to get the 5 when you can. And our food is only so-so, 50 to 70%. You're not going to see great progress. You're going to lose motivation. You're going to become frustrated. And then typically what happens is people will say, well, this approach isn't working. This diet doesn't work for me. Let me try this other diet. Or this training doesn't work for me. Let me try this other style of training. And the reality is we're actually not working the diet. We're not actually working the exercise. A healthy level of expectation for adherence would be 70% at a minimum, which is 5 out of 7 days. So if you can do 5 out of 7 days within your calorie target, 5 out of 7 days within your protein range, and maybe other attributes that you're looking for nutrition-wise, but if you can do 5 out of 7 or more, 6 out of 7 or 7 out of 7, then if you're not making progress, then yeah, sure, probably something is off on the diet. Or yeah, sure, something's probably off on the exercise program. So if you're at 70% adherence or more, but you're not seeing progress, then yes, I would second guess the program. I would take a deeper look at what you're doing. But if you're less than 70% adherent, don't bother changing the program, because whatever you change it to, you're not going to follow that either. So if you're only following a program 50% now, you're probably only going to follow the next one 50%. And no program works really well at only 50%. So the first way that people sabotage their own progress is setting their expectations too high or too low. So the too high part is don't ask what would be perfect, what's possible in a perfect world, because you're not going to get a perfect world. And then the too low is make sure you're doing enough that you can actually produce some results. And I would look at adherence first rather than whether you should do more of what you should be doing. Do what you should be doing first and then look at doing more or doing different. Number 2 is not tracking data. If you don't track what you're doing, then likely you're not going to do it very well. Out of sight, out of mind. If I don't track my calories, and I'm going to say, well, I eat healthy. Bullshit. We, as a species, myself included, are absolutely amazing at lying to ourselves and then believing our own bullshit lies. We are really good at it. It follows in line with the concept that us as humans want to feel good about ourselves even if we don't earn that. We tend to believe our excuses. So it's like, well, I meant to eat my lunch today, but my boss invited me out and they went to Mexican and I didn't want to stand out in the group. So I had the chips with the queso and the guac. And then whenever we were ordering, I kind of went for maybe the cream covered, Alfredo covered, whatever enchilada things. That was like 10,000 calories. Whenever really you could have just went for like a steak fajita and just did a steak in the tortilla wrap. So you made the lazier, more temporary, in the moment, enjoyable decisions. And then you say to yourself as well, I meant to follow it, but it was a better business move for me to, spend the time with my boss and spend the time with my coworkers. So I did a good job there. I did fine. I was okay. Well, in regards to the diet, no, you weren't. You completely bombed that. Maybe as business, sure. Maybe that was a good business decision. But when it comes to following your diet, that was a horrible decision. And that's okay if in that moment we accept that choice. But if you give yourself the excuse as to why you didn't eat the meal correctly, or why you missed a meal, or why you missed workouts, or why we made all these adjustments from what we're supposed to be doing, if we say, well, I had an excuse, I had good intentions, so I'm going to accept that and be okay with that. Well, then you have to accept and be okay with not making great progress. So too often people will believe their own bullshit if they don't track data. You have to track calories, track protein, track hydration if that's something you're tracking, track your exercises and your progressions from week to week if you're able to add weight or add reps. You want to track body weight. A lot of times clients will not track their body weight, but yet their goal is weight loss. What? If my goal is to save money, I'm probably going to look at my bank account to see how much money I have in my bank account. If my goal is to improve a thing, I probably want to be looking at that thing to see if I have more of it or better of it. If my goal is weight loss and I just don't look at my weight, well, what the hell? Right? What tends to happen in that case is people question whether they're really making progress or not because they can't feel it. And when you do a diet, you tend to feel kind of low energy. You feel a little bit soft in your body because we're not full of nutrients. It's not really a psychologically happy place to be. So if you don't have the scale tracking you, you're going to say, well, I kind of feel fat and weak today. I don't feel good. So I'm probably not making great progress. What does it even matter if I eat my breakfast? What does it even matter if I skip this extra little snack? I'm not tracking calories anyhow. No one's really going to know. What does it really matter? It's probably not that many calories. And we just have this big long line of bullshit. And that then leads to us losing motivation again and then questioning if what we're doing is working when we're actually not doing it. So again, we get to that point where, well, I'm following nutrition, but it's just not working for me. I guess I need to try a different diet. Bullshit. You're not even actually following the diet. Doesn't matter what the hell you choose next because you're not going to follow that either. So we always want to focus on consistency before we then focus on what we're doing in regards to like whether we need to make changes or not. The big thing when it comes to not tracking data is uncertainty leads to anxiety. If you're not 100% certain of what you're doing, we're typically going to default to an extreme of either assuming we're doing everything great, but the program isn't working, or assuming that, our body's trash, nothing we're doing is right, I'm destined to be, miss my goal or be out of shape or weak or whatever it is forever and ever and ever, and I'm a lost cause and blah, 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 blah. So we tend to get to these extreme mindsets when we don't track data. It is much better to know a negative than to assume one. So for example, if somebody's like, well, I don't want to track my body weight because it never changes. Well, track it. And then when you see it not changing, say, okay, I see it not changing. What can I change if I want to make a change? Most often what clients actually end up seeing is if they're new to lifting weights and they're new to dieting, they tend to build muscle, which adds body weight, as they're losing fat, which takes away body weight. So they tend to not see a change in body weight. But if they take photos or they take like they try on the same clothes every 4 weeks. You have maybe a tight pair of pants, you try it on in 4 weeks, and all of a sudden the waist is a little bit looser. Maybe a tight shirt, and now all of a sudden the belly's a little bit looser. There are multiple things we want to be tracking data-wise other than just weight. So they might see their weight not progressing, but they do feel a change in their clothes. Maybe somebody comments about them looking a little bit better in shape. Maybe they're tracking their gym performance. They're like, holy crap, I went from 40 pounds in week 1. Now I'm doing like 70 pounds in week 2 in this exercise. That is super awesome. That's really fun. So the more diversity of data we track, we can actually help to better understand any single point of data that might not be moving in the way that we want. We can see the totality of what's going on, and that helps us have more certainty, and then that releases a lot of anxiety. So not tracking data is not helpful. Track data. Track what you're doing. Track what you're getting. The more things you track, the better idea you have of what's going on overall. Number 3 is to focus, people will over-focus on one element. I see this all the time. Oh my gosh. One example would be personal trainers who love to do the gym, but they have disordered eating. They believe that under eating is going to help them lose weight. So they're in the gym every day, but they only eat 1,000 to 1,200 calories every day. And I'll ask them, I'll be like, what the hell are you doing? Here's our numbers for nutrition. This is why we're not making any progress. This is why your training's kind of stalling out, because we're not eating the right way. And they're like, well, I went to the gym an extra hour today. And I'm like, who gives a shit? That's not what I'm talking about. Like, congratulations, but you're putting all this emphasis on training, but you're completely shitting the bed on nutrition. So they overvalue training because it was the easier thing for them to do. It also appeases their like ADHD, anxiety type energy, but the nutrition they're just completely off on. So they'll praise themselves in one area that they tend to find easiest to do. They'll argue that it's easy. I understand your argument. You're going to want it to be more valuable than what it is. But okay. So they'll value what they can do well. And then they'll completely devalue or try to not pay attention to the things that they find very difficult. So it is easier to eat in a moderation of control than it would be to eat in extremes. So some people would rather eat only 1,000 calories 3 days in a row than pig out over the weekend, drink some wine, go out with their loved ones for dinner and dessert. They sleep in, skip breakfast, do all these crazy, stupid nutrition things Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then back through Monday through Thursday, they go back to only eating 1,000 calories. And they're like, why does my body composition look like crap? Well, even though I'm in the gym all the time. I don't have visible muscle. I'm not really strong. I don't look like I work out all the time, even though I work out all the time. And it's because you're focusing so much on working out, and then you're completely doing a horrible job on nutrition. Absolutely horrible job on nutrition. And you think the training is going to outweigh the nutrition, and it absolutely does not. Not in any way whatsoever. So people will praise themselves on the thing that they can do already, and then that then allows them to devalue the thing that they're struggling getting better at, so they don't have to try to put more and more effort into that when it already feels like it's overwhelming. So I do understand the emotional and mental capacity component of that is too much for me right now. Yeah, well, okay, but you're maybe looking at it because you're trying to do all these 17,000 things. Let's not try to do 17,000 things at once. Let's just do this one thing, see if we can do that for a week or two, then add the second thing if we can do that for a week or two. Let's break it down into smaller components that aren't so overwhelming. I've had clients track their calories for 1 day a week before. They asked me oh my gosh, 1 day a week, who even gives a crap? Is that enough? And I said, no, but it's better than zero. Before we worry about tracking every single day, when you currently don't track at all and you think tracking is overwhelming and it's going to take too much time and therefore you haven't been doing it at all, let's just do it one freaking day. Just 1 day. Do it 1 day. And then they usually will, relent to being like, okay, fine, And then they do it 1 day and they're like, oh, I guess that wasn't so bad. I'm like, what's great about a lot of tracking apps is that breakfast you just entered, name it. Say breakfast number 1 or oatmeal breakfast, whatever it might be. And then the next day, you don't have to put in every individual food. Just say, oatmeal breakfast or breakfast number 1, click it, and then it adds all the data at once. And they're like, oh, wow, that was a lot faster than I thought it was. I'm like, yeah, imagine that. So we weren't doing it at all because we assumed it would be crazy overwhelming. We then accepted that if I just do a small little element that is underwhelming, I can then build momentum, understand that maybe it isn't as crazy as I thought it was, and now all of a sudden I'm doing it 4 or 5, 6, 7 days a week, and I'm reaching my goals and I'm crushing life and very happy. So, a big thing that people do to self-sabotage is they over-focus on one element. Make sure you try to balance the elements. Now, what are the elements? I would think of nutrition, sleep, stress management, and training/exercise. So those are the big four to me, is nutrition, sleep, stress management, and training. You want to value those equally and make sure that they're equally doing as well adherence-wise, so that way you can get an overall great progress. The fourth way in which people self-sabotage is valuing short-term pleasures over long-term results. One example is when people break away from their training program to impress people in the gym, or to try to get extra followers on Instagram, or to just pursue something that's a temporary thing. And they're like, I just want to see if I could do that. But yet they have long-term results, like long-term goals in mind. Well, what are you doing? People will pick these short-term things, these short-term deviations, and maybe it goes well, maybe it's fun. It's up to you. You get to decide whether that's fun enough or not. But then all of a sudden there's long-term consequences. All of a sudden now they're having days where they go into the gym and it goes well or it doesn't go well, but they can't predict that. They're like, man, it used to be like every day felt really good, and now some days I feel like crap, some days I feel great. It's really high or low, and it's really unmotivating, and I don't know how I'm going to do my next competition. Now I'm super nervous. And it's like, well, why the hell did you dick around and go off program and screw stuff up whenever this meet meant a lot to you? If this meet meant a lot to you, why didn't we just stay on track the whole damn time so that way we'd be ready? This is me getting grumpy because I'm cussing more. But I see that all the time. People take on extra challenges or extra little things here or there, and then all of a sudden they overexert themselves. They're not sleeping great. They're missing a little bit of food. Now, like, the body's a little up and down, aches and pains, and they have this like consequence of things being out of whack due to that temporary thing that really didn't matter much in the grand scheme of things. So that's a big thing I would think of is where do I want to be in 6 months to a year from now, and make sure that whatever I'm doing today has that in mind. Will this, what I'm doing now, will this help me and make me in a better place in 6 months? Will this make me in a better place in 12 months? That long-term vision helps a lot. Then another thing is just short-term pleasures over long-term results. Is I'll have clients with nutrition all the time. They'll be like, well, I want to drink a glass of wine every night. Can I get in shape even though I drink a glass of wine every night? To a certain point, yes. As long as you control calories, you control protein, you control all your other meals of the day, you can make great progress and still drink some alcohol every day. Eventually, will that be a limiter? Yes. I mean, the peak of what your body is capable of is without alcohol involved. So does alcohol hold you back 5%, 10%, 15%? Who knows? Depends on a bunch of other factors. But it holds you back something. So if you can adjust all the other factors and you're happy with the results you're getting and you're still consuming alcohol on a regular basis, great. Good. If you're happy, awesome. But if you're unhappy and you're like, man, what's going on? Like, I'm just not making faster progress. And it's like, okay, well, you've ran out of room to be more consistent with calories. That's going great. You ran out of room to be more consistent with protein. That's going great. You're even doing really well with distribution. Your food selection is actually really good. You're picking faster digesting things when you're more active, slower digesting things when you're less active. But we do have this alcohol that's messing us up. And especially in men, because it lowers testosterone levels. And they'll be like, well, do I really need to give up the alcohol? And I'm like, well, do you want faster, do you want more progress or not? Like, if you want more progress, then yes, we have to make a reduction. Maybe you don't have to get rid of it, but can you drink, 6 beers a day? Probably not. Can we drop that down to 4? Can we drop it down to every other day or only on the weekends? Or what can you do that allows you to reduce that negative so you can get more positive, so you can get more progress? And then the fifth thing, the last way that people self-sabotage is waiting for things they can't control to then control what they can already control. What does that mean? The best example is when people will say is like, well, I'll do that when things calm down. Well, I'll track my calories next week because next week I'm not traveling. Or, I'll I'll start worrying about protein in 2 weeks. We're going on a trip, in a couple of days, and I'm not really sure what we're going to be doing on vacation. Then when we get back, I got a work project, and it's going to be a struggle to kind of get back on time with things. So can we revisit protein maybe in 3 weeks? And it's like, okay, well, there are certain circumstances where temporary delays are reasonable. But we have to question ourselves and double check on ourselves. Am I constantly delaying things over and over and over and over and over? So did I say I was going to start on Monday a year ago? Was it a Monday from a year ago? If we continuously delay things and we're just waiting for things to get back to normal, or we're waiting for things to calm down, they never, ever, 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 ever will. There is no such thing as normal. Absolutely none. The concept of normal is complete bullshit, and it is an excuse that you are using to allow yourself to not work harder at what you should be doing. That's going to piss off some people. But there is no such thing as normal. There's ebbs and flows in our life, and when people would assume normal is when you're somewhere between an ebb and a flow. You came out of an ebb and now you're in a flow. You're coming out of a flow and now you're in an ebb. However the hell that works. It's in the transitions that people would say is quote unquote normal. But that can be 12 hours, 24 hours, a week. I mean, we don't know how long that is, and it's never long enough. So people wait for this magical moment when the stars align. That never freaking happens, and it's not how life is. You have to learn how to do what you're wanting to do to get what you want, results and progress-wise, in the chaos of life. You have to learn how to be consistent in chaos. That is how you achieve success. Whenever things are completely insane and you still have to do the baseline of your best habits anyhow. So don't wait for things to happen that you can't control, waiting for things to get back to normal, to then start controlling the things you can control right now. Another example is I've had people say, well, I wanted to wait till I got this, fat burner. Maybe they were saving up for a medicine or a supplement, and they're like, well, when I get that, then I'll tighten up on my diet. Bullshit! Just start doing it now. Like, why not get our habits in place now? So then, when you have the medicine or you have the supplement, you have that stuff already done. Why get the supplement? Why get the medicine? And then have to take a week or 2 or 3 or 4 to figure out how to do things right. Do it right first. Then when you get the medicine or the supplement, it'll work. It'll work more effectively, and you won't waste so much damn time and money while you're, screwing around trying to get stuff right. I've had people tell me like, well, I'll start exercising when I can get a membership. Right now, I don't really have a gym membership. I'm between paychecks, or I have this going on, or I'm about to move in 2 months. Blah 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 blah. Just start doing bodyweight workouts. Like buy a couple dumbbells off Amazon. Just freaking do what you can do now. Stop putting off what you can control today. There's a ton of things in life that we can't control. But there's a ton of things in life that we can control. Focus on what you can control and control it at all times to the best of your ability, regardless of what is happening around you. That is how you'll make progress. It's going to be a little chaotic. You're going to be stressed at times, but it's better to have the stress of progress than the stress of regress. Absolutely. Okay. So those are 5 ways that I see clients sabotage their own progress: is setting self-expectations too high or too low, not tracking data, over-focusing on one element, valuing short-term pleasures over long-term results, and then waiting for things they can't control to then control what they can already control. If you see yourself doing any of these things, work on it. Attack it. Don't let it go another day. If you need anything, if you have any questions, shoot me an email at brutalirongym@gmail.com. I'm always here and I'm always happy to help. We do have our one-on-one coaching services, which you can learn about more on our website at www.brutalirongym.com as well. Cool. If you like the podcast, please share the podcast. The more people you share it with, the more people can help. If you like the podcast, you can support the podcast by buying your supplements from NutriCost.com. That's where I buy mine. You can use the code BrutalIron10 for a 10% discount, and then we get a 10% commission on whatever you spend. It doesn't increase what you pay, but it does help pitch back towards the podcast, towards our gym services and whatnot. It's a great way to support us if you would like to do that. So again, that's NutriCost.com, and the code is BrutalIron10. If you like the information we share in the podcast, you can find more from us on our social media channels. You can find us and follow us on Instagram and YouTube under the name Brutal Iron Gym. As always, I hope this was helpful, And thank you for listening.